Have you ever dreamed of buying a house in Italy? Or just wanted to study Italian in Tuscany or the Amalfi Coast, or find a job for a year in Rome? Perhaps you're tempted to retire with your partner to Sicily or somewhere in the south. Maybe you have European parents or grandparents and you'd like to process a European passport. Or you might be curious about whether it's possible to freelance from Italy or start a business here as an entrepreneur. Arguably the most difficult part of moving to Italy for any reason or any period of time is obtaining a visa or European passport. When it comes to visas, every country is slightly different. Anecdotal advice is not ideal. Hopefully, this discussion will be helpful for a general introduction to the possibilities of moving to Italy.
And over the past 15 years, I've been basically doing this, like helping foreign investors and family to relocate and set up their business, their family, their life here in Italy.
If we could, I wanted to talk today about sort of different groups of people. First, I think the person who is just wanting to study here.
Florence hosts over 60 study abroad programs, some through American universities that they have their affiliated, their sister companies here, other through international programs. It's just a matter of a few weeks ago that a new law was actually enacted that allows American students coming to attend a program through an American university that has a site here to avoid, if they are planning to stay up to 150 days, the need of having a visa.
Sure.
So it's part of a new agenda to try to simplify the process for students. Also, I think as a consequence of the COVID situation, to try to reduce the amount of paperwork and bureaucracy behind collecting a visa, obtaining a permit to stay. So now it doesn't apply to every student, but a lot of students can now come here basically just with their passport, stamping their passport when they arrive, going to request a dichiarazione di presenza, like a presence declaration at the local immigration office, and that's it. All the other students, all those people that are not necessarily undergrad students, there are a lot of people that are more grown up, decide to come to study in Florence. And generally speaking, if the study program lasts up to 3 months, if you're coming from a country, again, like America, like United States or Canada, where you're not requested to have an entry visa to come here as a tourist, you don't need it to study. The process of obtaining a study visa requires to have a program that you enroll. Generally speaking, is requested a program that lasts at least 20 hours per week. The Italian consulate will put on your passport eventually a visa, that is a sticker attached to your passport, and with that document you'll be able to enter in Italy. Within 8 days, that's very important, you have to request a permit to stay. A lot of people come to me and say, like, I have a visa, I've been here under a visa. The visa, to be very precise, is just a document that allows you to enter from your home country to Italy. That's the sticker. Once you are here, you need to obtain a permit to stay, permesso di soggiorno, which is the actual document. It's a plastic card with your information inside that allows you to stay here and to travel around Europe. And that you can renew if you continue your program for more than 6 months, a year. You can renew passing through the immigration office as well. Allows you to stay here longer than what you originally planned. You cannot move from one study abroad program to another one. So you cannot go from study language to study photography or something else from other university. You have to stay within the same program, within the same school.
How much time do you recommend someone leaves? Because a lot of the time I get people writing to me saying, that's it, I've decided, I want to move to Italy, and I would like to go in 6 months. I mean, do you think that's unrealistic, that someone should leave more time, like say 12 months for everything to process?
It's hard to say. Generally speaking, I think that 6 months is a good time. It depends on whether you're coming through an organized program like your university. If you're planning to come to study with your independent study abroad program, so it's by yourself, the only complication can be collecting the document from the institute, from the entity that will be hosting you, and it's very important to ask questions to this entity, like, is your program recognized to come to study abroad.
I learned that the hard way, because you assume that, okay, if it's a language school and if I have the hours, that will be enough. But not all schools in Italy are actually registered.
Absolutely. It doesn't have to be a university. It can be also a private program. But it's important to be sure that it's a program that obtained through the region, through the government, the authorization to offer courses.
Yes.
Say, are you entitled to offer programs for which I can request my student visa?
Yes.
That's very important.
Yeah, and also I've found with my own visa struggles, because over 10 years I've got different types of working holiday visa, study visa, all kinds of things. And one of the questions that they ask of you is to show proof of accommodation.
Absolutely.
Now, I would love your expert opinion on this, because often I find myself in the situation that I don't want to commit to a lease, and many people, I imagine, don't want to commit to a lease without seeing it. They're over in their home country. But does it suffice to put a hotel or a temporary Airbnb apartment, for example?
Hotel definitely doesn't, because it must be a place where you have that covers basically the duration of your study abroad program.
Right.
It's also possible, of course, like if you come here with the intention of staying for 3 months, having a contract of 3 months is very, very basic. It's not extremely complicated, and it very much depends on whether you're doing by yourself, you're doing through an agency. You can always ask to an agency the possibility to have some flexibility. Like, obviously, the owner of the apartment has the right to receive a notice if you're planning to leave the apartment before the end of the contract that you originally signed. So in that respect, it's not impossible to change the apartment before the natural expiration of the contract you signed sometime when you're still at your home country. That's the reason why I say it's important to negotiate with the real estate agency, if you're doing it through any real estate agency, or through the owner of the apartment, saying, listen, I'm happy to stay here for 1 year, but what if I don't like, if I want to be in somewhere else, I want to change my location in a different part of the city, or so that's when, generally speaking, the contract must provide for the notice time that you're expected to give to the owner, to the landlord, in order to leave the property. Airbnb depends on the kind of agreement that you're established with the Airbnb owner. Again, because you are expected to cover the entire duration. So if with the Airbnb owner you set up a rental agreement for 3 months, the owner by law is expected to give you a written contract, because any contract lasting more than 30 days are expected to be in written form and to be registered with the Agenzia delle Entrate, revenue agency.
So with the study visa, I found that when you call the consulate, or sometimes they won't respond, or they'll very seldom reply to emails. At least this is my experience in Australia, and it becomes very frustrating for someone to plan, particularly because, at least with my experience with Australia, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I found that I had to purchase the travel insurance and my ticket without having received the confirmation that I have the visa. Now, this was for me I said, but what if the visa is rejected? Is this true that you have to take that risk? Is that right?
It's that you have to take that risk.
Yes.
You definitely need to arrive at the appointment with the consulate with a full package to be sure that your study abroad program really exists, and that you're really able to be covered. So in terms of insurance, because what if something happens to you while you're in Italy and you're not covered?
Of course.
The Italian healthcare system is amazing, but it is not a free ride for anyone who wants to come here. Sure. There are a lot of opportunities for people that decide to stay here to enroll in a healthcare program, but in principle, if you're coming for a temporary amount of time, so if you're not a taxpayer, in other words, and you don't participate to like supporting the healthcare system, you're expected to come with an insurance, and that's part of the package that you have to provide when you complete before completing the process, and when you're in the process of obtaining the visa.
If we're looking at something beyond just study, if we move now into talking about those who might want to either work, either freelance, work for themselves and retain the clients that they have in their home country, or potentially find work here in Italy, what happens then? Is that...
It is important information that while you're studying abroad, you can also support yourself by studying abroad because you can work part-time. Your permit to stay, that eventually you obtain a permit to stay to study, you're entitled to work part-time with any company up to 20 hours a week. Right. So it's a part-time. But it's a part-time that sometimes is an excellent way to support yourself, but it's also an excellent way to get in touch with a potential clients or company, a company that can maybe get to know you. If they like you, there's actually the possibility of converting your study program, your study permit to stay, in a work permit to stay. So this is important. While you're studying abroad, during the duration of your program, while your permit to stay is still valid, so it's not expired yet, there is a possibility under a specific requirement to convert your study abroad permit to stay in work permit to stay. Otherwise, if you have a great idea, just finish your study abroad master program, you want to use the connections that maybe in the meantime you created, and you want to remain here in Italy, you can do it by converting your student permit to stay in a self-employed freelance consultancy permit to stay.
And may I ask, I know it's a very difficult question to answer, but I'm curious about your opinion, because a lot of people ask me, how difficult is it to find work in Italy if you don't speak Italian or if you speak rudimentary Italian? And I never know how to answer, because
you speak very well Italian.
No. I still make a million mistakes. But I wondered, because your wife is American, and so you must be frequenting quite a few expats here. And
I think that learning a language is a key for success, and is the key to love and enjoy fully the place where you're living. Like, if you decide to stay in Italy, is because obviously it's not only it's not for the efficiency, it's not because it's not a bureaucratic country. There are a lot of cons in this country compared to many countries, maybe the countries where these people are coming from. But the quality of life, the heart of people, the landscape, even the standard of living that sometimes you can enjoy here in Italy is unparalleled. And I think that coming here with the intention of setting up a business activity without being fully without having the full intention to learn the language would be absolutely problematic from a bureaucratic, from a practical point of view, because it's not only about setting up a company. You can say, yeah, my clients will be international, yes, but you have to get a lease for the place where you want to work. You have to pay utilities. The internet can stop working. The plumbing system can break suddenly, and they have not have any more electricity. There is a leak in the. If you are still in your home country, the application for your freelance visa must be submitted at the consulate of the place where you're living. You can choose the consulate. It's the place where you're paying your bills, where you have your bank account. And that's one of the things that they ask you at the consulate. Can you provide evidence that you live under our jurisdiction? Many times online, we've been helping a lot of life coaches, digital graphic designers, or marketing strategists, people working with incredible international clienteles, some based in Italy, trying to expand their business abroad, many with the American clients that they had before moving to Italy. In this case, it's important to collect documents, and it's one of the things that we do very efficiently, is to help them collect this information through the Chamber of Commerce, through the Immigration Office, through the labor desk. There are numbers of documents that need to be collected in Italy, and if the person that is planning to come to Italy is still in his home country, they need to appoint a legal proxy, someone who is in Italy, helping them to collect this document. If you're coming here as a tourist, just to say, and you fall in love with the country, you fall in love maybe with a person, and you don't want to go back home, you cannot, and be very careful about this, you cannot come here as a tourist and then change your status from tourist to worker without going back home and applying for the visa, because the visa is a document that can only be provided by the Italian consulate in your home country.
Let's talk about the ultimate dream, which is to buy a villa or a ruin or maybe just a little one-bedroom cottage apartment in Italy. This, I think, is quite common with my audience. They've been to Italy either once or numerous times in their life. They know they love it. They're either looking to retire here or really to move their whole life here, even if they're in their 30s or whatever. What is involved with buying a property here, and what visa is required? Because you don't automatically have the right to live in the country just because you purchase a property. Is that correct?
That's very correct. Buying a property in Italy, as you said, is the ultimate dreams of a lot of persons, because Italy is so easy to reach. So you can fly easily, especially from America, from Canada, from a lot of countries. You can easily, from England, there are so many British citizens that, especially recently, over the past couple of years, have decided to come to buy a property in Italy. And the real estate market is extremely complex. Is like we've been helping people that are in the real estate market. They've been in the real estate market for decades, and then arrive in Italy, and they are expecting to be able to use the same principle, the same knowledge, the same know-how, and say, well, I've been doing this for 30 years. And then all of a sudden he said, yes, but you cannot do that in Italy. So in terms of the incredible amount of pitfalls that you could face, the first recommendation that I have is find a legal advisor. Of course, we do that, but find a legal advisor if you already have one. Be sure that they know how to handle real estate transactions. Because buying a property it goes beyond the contract that you have to sign in front of a notary. In Italy, every purchase agreement must be a public deed that must be done passing through a written agreement that is notarized. The notary is not the public notary that there is of the common law system of England or United States. Is an officer that is a public officer, kind of between a judge and a lawyer, who is there to execute the transfer of a property between one person and the other. But is there as a third neutral, and of course his role is to be sure that all the rules are respected. He also can advise, generally speaking, the notary can advise the buyer in order to be sure that he's doing a good thing. But a lot of people, a lot of persons prefer to have their personal advisor, their legal advisors, that tells them in advance, before arriving in front of a notary, whether a property's value is appropriate, if it's too expensive, what to expect once you have the ownership. Sometimes people arrive to the notary deed thinking that they will be able to move the window, and you cannot touch external aspect of the buildings unless you are authorized. The zoning in Italy is the regulation is extremely severe. A lot of buildings, we're talking about, sometimes you buy in places like Florence, you can easily buy a building that goes back in the 15th century. 15th century building. Of course, there are specific requirements. A lot of time these buildings are covered by fine art restrictions, so that there are specific restrictions where the government is basically telling you what you can and what you cannot do inside your own house. And people think that I can I set up, like, I'm going to tear down that wall because I want to have a kitchen, large kitchen. I'm going to put there huge windows. No, you can't. You can buy a property as a tourist, meaning like you don't need to have a permit to stay to buy a property. Tourists, under general conditions, if they're coming from our countries, there is only to be respected reciprocity principle, so that an Italian that goes in that country can buy a property. But generally speaking, with countries like America or in United States, Canada, Australia, Brazil, like generally speaking, there are no restrictions in terms of a possibility for a tourist to come and to buy a property in Italy. So people can buy a property as a tourist, no problem. If they want to say, like, I would like to spend a year in Italy to enjoy, to travel around, I want to try to stay 3 months in a place, 2 months in a place, it's possible, but you need a visa. Again, you cannot do as a tourist, and you cannot extend your tourist status. So people thinking, I've been here for 90 days, can I extend my tourist status while I'm looking for property? No, you have to go back home, and you have to wait 3 months, and then come back here in Italy again for 3 more months as a tourist. What you can do, if you're sure, if you want to take let's say, a sabbatical year, to have 1 year an experience that lasts for 1 year in a foreign country, you can do that, proving that you are able to stay in Italy without working for 1 year. Meaning you have to prove that you have sufficient passive income generated in your home country that allows, with the amount of money that you receive from rent, from dividend, from investment, from a fund that generates, again, money, or a company that you own, but you don't need to go every day to clock in, clock out. So a business that generates a business and generate income to you. If you can prove that you have sufficient income, again, passive income, you can request a specific visa that is called for elective resident. Elective residency visa sometimes is also, some people, they call it a golden visa. It's not golden visa, because a golden visa is something completely different that we don't have in Italy. But it's a visa that allows a person that doesn't need to work to stay in Italy to submit an application through the consulate, providing the document requested by the consulate to prove that you are economically independent, that you don't need to work because your assets in your home country are sufficient to support you while you're living abroad. If the consulate agrees with your application, you get a visa that allows you to stay in Italy as long as you want, to travel around Italy and to do whatever you want in Italy, and maybe eventually find the property of your dream and buy it.
If you don't have a company that is giving you this passive income, but you do have the funds, do you know off the top of your head how much it would be? Because I feel like I've read that somewhere before, that you can, if you have a certain, is it 30,000 or something?
The law doesn't provide a number. The law is very vague in this respect, and that's one of those vague blurry situations where each consulate can give you a different number. Generally speaking, I've never seen an application where your passive income is less than between 45 and 50,000 euro for the first person. For the second person, so the two-person, a couple coming, doesn't have to be 100,000. So generally speaking, 60, 70,000 euros is sufficient. But again, it's very case by case. Is very. It's also depend on what kind of passive income, because again, if you have money coming from your pension, so you know that every month you have 3,000 euro of pension. 3,000 euro is a good amount of money. If you're again renting an apartment that costs you 2,000 euro, 3,000 euro of pension is not sufficient. If you're taking a little studio in the countryside, it's costing you 700 euro a month, maybe for the consulate, your 40,000 euro could be sufficient. But again, it's a situation that must be seen on a case-by-case scenario. Properties. First, misleading information. I bought a property in Italy. I bought a beautiful villa. Can I have a permit to stay to use my property that I bought in Italy? No. Owning a property in Italy is not like in other European countries where owning a property entitles you to have a permit to stay. Having a property in Italy doesn't give you automatically the possibility to come. Having a property, of course, can be calculated toward the passive income, because if you have already property, you don't need the 3,000 euro to rent the property, because you already have a property. So having a property can simplify the application and the legal, let's say, the list of documents to prove that you are economically able to stay in Italy without working. So first misconception, I have a property, I can stay in Italy as long as I want or without a visa. No, you still need a visa to come to stay here if you're planning to stay more than 90 days every 180 days. The other misconception, I have a property in Italy, I am subject to Italian taxation. I have to pay taxes, all my taxes in Italy just because I have a property. No, you pay property taxes related to the only to the property that you have in Italy. I'm coming to visit to stay in my property for 3 months, 4 months, 5 months, a year. Do I have to report my taxes to the Italian government because I have the property? Again, unless you spend more than 183 days, so the majority of the year, or if you set up your residency, your formal domicile in the property that you own, you don't have obligation besides reporting the property that you have in Italy, or the income, of course, that you generate in Italy because you're working in Italy. Another thing, you were talking about, my husband owns a property in Italy. If your husband or the person who owns the property is a foreign citizen like you, and therefore if you both live abroad, the fact that one of you owns the property of course, it's not sufficient to qualify any of you to have a permit to stay. If you have one of the two persons has already a permit to stay for other reasons, for work, for elected residency, because have been living for maybe European Union citizen, and they already have a permit to stay or a title that allows them to stay, of course the spouse can request a family visa that allows the person to stay here. But it means that the other person has already a document, a title, a permit to stay that allows the person to stay in Italy.
This brings me to my last question, then I'll let you go. But a lot of people who watch my channel are Italo-Canadesi, Italo-Americani. They have grandparents or parents who were born here in Italy or in the Schengen zone. Perhaps they're French or whatever, or German, and they want to get their...
Like as a law firm, we help hundreds of people every year in reacquiring their Italian citizenship. It is true that if someone in your family, even 150 years ago, were Italian, you are potentially still entitled to recover your Italian citizenship. How it works? We have to go back to the member of a family that was born in Italy, so your great-grandparents that was born, your great-grandfather, great-grandmother were born in Firenze, in Napoli, whatever, maybe even 100. We can go back to the 1875, 65, so more than 150 years ago. So that's how back we can go, when Italy became a nation. So before, Italy didn't exist as a nation. So, but starting from 1865, if someone was already born in Italy, he was Italian. So if that person years later decided to leave the country, the Italian blood was transferred from that person to all the next generation, because what qualifies you as an Italian is the fact that you come from an Italian family. So even if you're born abroad, collect the birth, marriage, and death certificate of each one of the person, showing that they had the child had another child, and so on, up to the person that is now trying to recover its Italian citizenship. What we do now from Italy is helping them to collect the Italian documents. So we go back in those little vital record office in the small communes, small municipality around Italy to collect those documents. It's very important to clarify something that is not said on the Italian website many times, that not only the paternal side of a family can entitles you to recover your Italian citizenship. There is this misconception, if you read on Italian consulates, only the paternal side can allow you to recover your Italian citizenship. That is true, because that is the old law that regulates citizenship, that says only men can transfer Italian blood. As a matter of fact, through the years, through the enactment of a new constitution in 1948 and the interpretation provided by the Supreme Court for, at this point, 50 years, also women has reached the right to transfer their Italian citizenship to their children. We filed an application in the court. We're asking the judge to not apply a specific aspect of the law and to give an interpretation of the citizenship law that is coherent with our constitutional value, where men and women are treated equally. So we're asking, is it possible to come to Italy without a visa? Generally speaking, it's not possible. But if we have worked, us from Italy, the other person from in their home country, for collection of all the documents. So we have recreated the line of blood from that Italian ancestor, 2-3 generations, birth, marriage, death certificate, up to the person. All the documents are properly translated, properly certified as authentic. This person can bring this document in Italy and request them to be processed through an Italian comune where he or she established their residency. You can request a residency, and you have to live in Italy, of course, for the entire time of the process. It's not that you can submit the application then go back, but if you establish your residency in Italy, you can use your residency to submit the application for citizenship instead of in front of the consulate, in front of the vital record office of the comune where you establish your residency. It's incredible the amount of cases where we had clients saying, like, just to be sure, we did everything. We're ready to come. We already bought the flight. Just want to be sure that we didn't miss something. And so just to review the document. And that is when I said, I would move your flight. Like you're not ready to come. Like you're missing this, you're missing this. This is a huge discrepancy. Like, hey, but it's clear that we're talking about the same grandmothers. No, we're not. It's not clear. It's not subject to the interpretation.
Michele, grazie mille. You've been so knowledgeable, and I think maybe we would have to do a part 2 to cover everything completely. But for the moment, thank you for this buon inizio, and
Buon inizio anche a te. Thank you so much for having me, and it was wonderful. And
thank you so much.
my pleasure.